So how fast can I make a Coleman RSV on a $100 budget? So I have a 100% stock Coleman RSV, and I'll go ahead and take the bike out for a 0 to 30 and top speed run to get a baseline on the bike. And I'll use this Dragy performance meter to measure the times so we get really accurate times. So this build is gonna be even more of a sleeper than the B200 videos. So I wanna leave the stock exhaust and the stock carb. So in this first video in the series, I'll remove the internal governor and I'll plug the governor holes in the block without using any added hardware or any bolts because I have to stay within the $100 budget. And then I'll add this cast aluminum flywheel and then add some free timing. And I'll add the timing without a flywheel key. And then I'll take the bike back out for a 0 to 30 and top speed, and then we'll remeasure the 0 to 30 and top speed times, but I think it might make a pretty big difference. Might be able to get a top speed on the way down here. Let's see. Not quite. I think it has a little more left in it. Let me set up this Dragy here real quick. 0 to 30, totally stock Coleman RSV 196. Okay, there's 30. We did 0 to 30 in 7.65. Let me back that up real quick, just to make sure. Okay, second attempt 0 to 30 with the Coleman RSV, totally stock. See if we can beat up on 7.65. There's 30. We beat up on it. 7.23 is the best time. So that's a good baseline. Now I'll see if I can get a top speed here. So we're kind of going up the hill now. I'll try to get it out here on some flat land. These are actually faster than the old Colemans were though. So that's pretty good. We got a top speed so far of 44.17. That's not bad actually for a totally stock bike. Let me see if I can get any more out of it. So 45.34 is the top speed, which is not bad, especially for a stock bike. This is sure a lot faster than my CT200U EX was, totally stock. I think that thing only did like 21 miles an hour. And this bike actually runs pretty good for being stock. So we get a top speed of 45.34 and then a 7.23. So the flywheel I picked up was 28 bucks with 22-pound springs. So in this video, I'm gonna add the flywheel and then remove the internal governor. And then I'm gonna go ahead and use an 18-degree flywheel that I had lying around so I can add some timing without using a timing key. So far, we have used $28 in our $100 budget. Use my 19mm socket to pull off this flywheel. Pull this air box and this tank off of here. Move this throttle assembly over to the side for right now, but I'm going to put it back on there because I'm going to use the stock carb in this build. Remove this governor arm here because I'm not going to be needing that. And I'll go ahead and reuse this rod to set up my throttle assembly. I'll rebend it for the stock plate. Spread this open to get this off of here. Makes it a lot easier. Throw this flywheel nut back on here and put it flush with the shaft so I don't mess up the threads. So I'll go ahead and get rid of these charging coils because I'll use one of my battery packs like I did in the B200 video. And the battery pack that I used literally lasts for days with the LED lighting, so no need for charging coils. Unplug these charging coils from the wiring harness. And then no need for the flywheel key because I'm going to advance the timing without the key. So these Coleman bikes are kind of cool. They use a nice tight belt with ball bearings on the driver instead of using a loose belt with a bushing, which is kind of nice. Remove this driven. Let's do a quick oil change. Pull this governor shaft off of here. All right, there we go. So now I have the crankshaft turned to where I can knock out that nylon gear from the other side. So I'll knock out this pin here and then pull the pin off the gear, then reuse the pin and pop it back in the hole. Come back over to this side and there we go. I gotta make sure I pull that little washer out of here. There's a washer behind that gear. Don't want to leave that in there. So now I'll pull this gear off of this pin and then reuse the pin. Or I can put a 1/4 inch by 20 or a 1/4 inch by 16 bolt in that hole. Either way. So I'm gonna cut this pin in half and I'll show you why in a second. So tap this pin back in here, my half a pin. So it's nice and flush so you do not interfere with the flywheel. And then the other half of the pin I use on the top. So you could use a 1/4 by 20 or a 1/4 by 16 bolt with some Loctite to seal this hole up here. But I've used the pin multiple times and never had an issue with it. No leaks. Or the half a pin. Okay, so there we go. And not only does it seal it, but we're staying in budget. I gotta stay under 100 bucks. And a bolt would probably cost me a couple bucks. So I can't do that. So then we got the governor holes sealed up. So now I'll button this side back up. Now on this mating surface here, again, to save money, I use the same gasket. I just make sure I clean off all the oil. You gotta make sure I clean the oil off on the side cover. Again, I could add a new gasket, but I have to stay under $100, and I've never had an issue reusing one of these gaskets, especially when they're newer, and you get all the oil off of it. It'll definitely seal back up on there. I've never had any leak issues. So before I put the torque converter back on here, I'll install my flywheel. So I use my homemade flywheel or crank holding tool. And then I will use these M8 by 125 bolts, which is the same for the crank. So my aluminum flywheel only has about 18 degrees timing, give or take. Every one of these engines is a little bit different from one another. But I mean, so roundabout. So I have a 9-degree flywheel key here, which I'm not going to use. I'm not going to use any flywheel key to stay in budget. You don't need a flywheel key. This is basically a reference. But anyway, so we'll see how wide a 9-degree key is, and I'll mimic that on the flywheel. So you're looking at what, 3.94, 3.93 millimeters for the entire key. So let's see what the 9-degree part, how wide that is. So 1.73 is 9 degrees advanced. So I mean pretty close to half. So if I go about half on the flywheel, we're looking around what, 10 or 11 degrees? And that'll be right in the ballpark. With my 18, that'll bring it up to around 30, 29 or 30. So before I install the flywheel and mark it, I'm gonna lap this flywheel in real quick with some valve grinding compound. So I'll mark this flywheel with my Sharpie. When I torque it down, I just want to make sure that it doesn't move it forward more because there's no key in there holding it. So I'll torque this to 54 because it's not a billet flywheel. So I just torque it to the stock spec. So I'll get this coil to about 30 because this flywheel here doesn't have rare earth magnets. Got her all buttoned up. So now for my throttle assembly, I don't have the governor rod coming from under here anymore, but I still have the throttle cable hooked up in the stock location. Never had to mess with that. So now all I have to do is bend my rod that came with the original throttle and run it from here to the carb. Okay, that ought to do it. Throw a bend in that. Here is the finished product. Nice simple throttle assembly. All right, there we go. Total sleeper. Everything looks stock. Pull my crank holding tool off of here and then throw the torque converter on here, and I think that's pretty much it. So that wasn't too bad. Did everything with $28 in parts. Didn't use any extra parts on the throttle linkage. No governor bolts. Used the shaft rod that was already in the engine for the top of the block and the side behind the flywheel. And did not use a flywheel key. So we still have $72 in the $100 budget, which is cool. So now I'll take it back out for 0 to 30 in top speed and see if I can beat, what was it, 7.23 0 to 30 and 45.34 top speed. Yeah, it seems extra snappy with that extra timing. Man, it feels a lot more snappy already. I don't know if it'll have any more top speed, but it sure seems like it's quicker. At least that's what it feels like anyway. We'll find out. 0 to 30, Coleman RSV, governor removed, cast flywheel with some added timing. Oh yeah, it's a lot quicker. We went down to 6:14, 0 to 30. We knocked off more than a second. It's a lot quicker. Let me back that up. Definitely a lot more snappy. This throttle, the way it's set up, is a lot more quick. All right, let me see if I can back up that 6:14. Second attempt, 0 to 30, Coleman RSV. All right, there's 30. Yep, a 6:17. So a 6:14 and a 6:17. So it's definitely a lot quicker. It's amazing how much quicker that is. So now I'll see if I can beat 45.34 top speed. Yeah, I don't know if that added timing will hurt the top speed or help the top speed. I guess we'll find out. So it feels similar so far. I'm not sure if I'm gonna have more top speed, but we'll see down here. So 48.85. So we gained some top speed too. We're getting close to 50 now. Yeah, it definitely made a big difference. So this bike got a lot quicker and quite a bit faster. So totally stock, we went at 7.23 0 to 30, and then 45.34 top speed. Then I added the cast flywheel, added some timing, and removed the governor, and we dropped to 614, which is over a second quicker, and that's a lot on the bike. And then gained quite a bit of top speed, 48.85. So the bike is already knocking on almost 50 miles an hour, and we're $28 into the budget. So be sure to check out the next video in the series where I add some more inexpensive speed parts. And I'm sure we're gonna break over 50 in the next video with a totally stock looking RSV.